Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com as well as the mobile app. He's Howard Cross. I'm Lance Meadow with you for the next 60 minutes as we'll recap the Christmas game between the Giants and the Eagles. Giants falling to Philadelphia 33-25, a highly competitive game that came down to the very last play of the game in the end zone. So we'll get into the ins and outs of this contest and a whole lot more. And clearly we'll be taking your phone calls as well.
Absolutely.
Based on what we can hear in the background. And Howard and I also broke down the game in the latest edition of the Giants Hangout, which will be posted later today. So we're going to give you our full arsenal of opinions when it comes to this contest. But
uninterrupted by other people. We're just going to be like tearing each other up here.
That's right, correct. We don't have two other individuals to provide the peace on this program. That's right. So we'll set the parameters in place before we get going. But in all seriousness, this is a bit of a coulda, woulda, shoulda game, Howard, right? When you look for it on offense or defense, a lot of missed opportunities that the Giants are going to go back and they're going to see on film, and they're going to say, we convert a third down, we make a third down stop, we maybe get a call from the officials. Who knows how this game could very well turn out?
Well, it's a coulda, woulda, shoulda season, too.
Without a doubt.
You know, you got the Jets game, the Bills game, and other games, like all of a sudden, they're like, they'd be really like fifth in the playoffs or sixth in the playoffs or something like that. So that's all good and nice and everything. But the thing I think that what I'm looking at and looking for from the team is a steady improvement. And that's what I saw in this game. I saw them, they didn't make every play, but they made enough plays to keep it super competitive. You know, you're playing a team that you played against 3 times last year, and 3 times last year they beat you down. And I know that Philadelphia, quote unquote, isn't having their best year, but they were odds-on favorites to be, you know, in the playoffs, to win the division, possibly to be back in the Super Bowl, and you hung in there with them, and you gave them a good game. Now, can they find a way to make a few more plays? I'm sure they will eventually, but this week, you know, they improved. They improved even when they switched quarterbacks. They still improved. They improved with Barkley running the ball. The offensive line found a way to get a few more blocks. Not every block was great, but they found a way to get a few more blocks. They improved, you know, defensively. They found a way to get another takeaway. There were still other things they need to, you know, sharpen up and be more precise on, because you need to make all your plays to beat a good team. But they improved, and that's what I was hoping for. I didn't want it to be a blowout. I didn't want it to be you coming in here and talking about, oh man, we're just so far away. Now you don't look like you're so far away, and that's hope. You know, for me for this season, like I said, if they won 7 games this year, I'd be impressed. And so that was like, you know, that was impressive to me, and I think they possibly, you know, not to look past the Rams, but when they play them in the last game of the season, the Eagles will be playing for something, and the Giants will be playing to spoil whatever that something is. So this is exciting for me to see, you know, how this is going to shake out for them.
Big Blue Kickoff Live is presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. We can get to your phone calls a little bit later on at 201-939-4513. You can also use hashtag GiantsChat on Twitter. And as a reminder, you can find the archive of this show and our entire podcast network on the Giants mobile app, podcast platforms everywhere, and at Giants.com/podcast. I would say the biggest disparity, Howard, that you were hitting on in previous matchups was playing the trenches on both fronts, right? Offensive line, defensive line. And Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito, both played in this game. We'll get into the decision that Brian Daboll made in a bit. Tommy DeVito absorbed 1 sack. And Philly's not sacking the quarterback at the same rate, of course, as in previous seasons. But that's a huge step in the right direction from the Giants' perspective. Now, did Philadelphia still get pressure? Absolutely. Yeah. The few throws that Tyrod Taylor tried to convert on third downs to Barkley and Darren Waller were a bit underthrown as a result of Taylor having to adjust because of the pressure in his face. But from a statistical standpoint, and your point about them being able to run the football, that was big in comparison to previous matchups.
Yeah, previous matchups. And in previous games this season, starting 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, those are all the things you want to do to try to get your team moving in the right direction. And the Giants did it over and over again. It wasn't like 2nd and 10, 2nd and 12, 2nd and 15. Like they weren't, you know, false starting. They weren't doing things that were questionable and hurting themselves. They were getting their blocks, stand on blocks. Barkley was meshing it up in there really good. It was really helping the flow of the game for them. And I was happy for them in that aspect. I think the third downs, they didn't quite get them the way they wanted to, but they won successfully on a couple fourth down plays. So they got it so close that, you know what, a third and inches is just like getting a first down, because they can go for it and get it. So they did that several times as well. So that again, keeping the ball moving, it looks good. Outside of a drop here and a weird call in the game, they could have had like some big drives that could have really changed the floor of the game.
And that's why the 3 third downs that were noticeable to me, and to your point, 10 downs for 7 yards or less on third down in this game, you'll take that. They were only 4 of 14. You want to see the conversion rate go higher, especially since the Eagles were dead last in third down defense. But the first turning point was a 3rd and 7. This is when Tommy DeVito's in the game, first quarter, over the middle, slightly behind, but still catchable for Darren Waller. He bobbles it, drops it. So therefore, that stalls it down. And then a 3rd and 3, check that, a 3rd and 6. And then you also had a 3rd and 1 underthrown to Waller. And those 2 downs, one was to Barkley, one was to Waller. And this is now in the second half. Those also short-circuited drives. And given the fact that the Eagles scored on 7 of their 10 possessions, this was a game where you had to feel as if you were walking away, Howard, with points on all of these possessions that we're talking about.
Well, if they have better possessions and they keep the drives going, Eagles do not get a chance to score in all those drives. It's just a different flow of the game. It just is. I think the Waller play, is one that you have to think about mostly because if he catches the ball and he's running, there is no safety. He's probably
open space.
Yeah, he's going to the house. I think there was one to Saquon that if the ball could just get to him, I think it hits the ground. He's outside and nothing but green grass and opportunity out there. So if he catches the ball, he doesn't even have to catch it in stride. If he just catches it and turns around, it's a foot race. So plays like that you got to have, and those are the things. I think there was a play to Robinson on the sideline where he was like wide open and the ball was airmailed, and when you're having those opportunities, slip by, those are the things that they're going to hurt you. But things that also hurt them that they can't do from an offensive standpoint. Besides the drops, you can't have 3rd and 1. You're doubling up to the second level and you never release and go to the second level. You have to do your assignment. You have to slide up to the next level. You don't have to kill the guy or knock the guy down, but you need to be in contact with the guy. He's got to be fighting through you or running over you to try to get to the play. And there were a few plays where linebackers ran straight into the backfield because the guys did not get up to the second level. They never got off the down block or the guy that was in front of them. So if they can, like I said, clean that up, and if it's more communication and knowing your assignments tight, it's hard to do. I hate to say it, it's just hard to do in certain situations. You've had rotating guys, you've had all these different things happen, you've had guys miss time, but they still have to find a way to have that assignment airtight, perfect. And it's hard to do. I tell people this all the time. Guys are learning now on the fly. They're not learning practical football. They're learning theoretical football because you're teaching it to them in a classroom. And you can see it in practice. In practice, you're not going full speed. In practice, you're not, you can see where they're standing. But in the game, it's down, sit, and that guy's sliding. Like, okay. Like, how do you communicate? Like, sure. If you hadn't seen it, and it's, and in this team, these are things these guys are going to continuously work on, and they're just got to stay healthy together, to have some, consistency. Once they do that, I think they'll be better at it because they're not far away. They just aren't. They're really close to like some of these plays being, big plays for them. But one guy not getting where he's supposed to, not touching the right person, can it's a loss of downs. It's a throwaway play, and you can't have throwaway plays, especially against good teams.
I think the best example that spells out what you're talking about is last possession of the first half, 4th and 1. You have Hassan Reddick lined up, and you have Bellinger and Slayton both in the vicinity, and untouched. He cuts right through both. He gets into the backfield. Saquon loses 4 yards. That was a 4th and 1, Howard, from the Philadelphia 21.
Yeah.
Missed scoring opportunity. Forget the down and distance. I mean, you're in the edge of the red zone there. You can at least maybe milk more time because remember, Philly gets the last possession, and we know the Bobby Okereke penalty, which we'll get into, but they tack on a field goal. So right there, I mean, that's a 6-point swing at minimum based on where the game was.
But you have to remember that earlier in the game, they had a similar block, and the backer ran through and made the tackle in the backfield, right? 3rd and 1, 2 guys are on the edge. I think it may have been even 2 tight ends. The backer runs through. So now you have a receiver and a tight end, and you have almost an identical situation. Tight end goes, well, that guy right there is not making the tackle, and he goes up immediately. The receiver's like, hey, yo, dude, that dude right there is a Pro Bowler. Sure. Like, what am I going to do? He could jump on his back and rode him into the play or something, but there was not a lot he could have done to prevent the play unless, and I don't think you can cut from there. And that's the other thing. You can't just dive at the guy's legs because that's a penalty as well because you're on the outside of the tackle, out of the tackle box, so to speak. So that's a hard play. It just is. And what the defense that they play, and if your fans would know, is it's called a wide nine, which means they play outside shoulder of the tight end. That's the nine, what we call the nine hold. So if you don't have a guy that can, bump that guy out or turn him out, and they're doing it so that linebacker can run through the hole. So your choices are somebody's got to stay right here and hope to get a hand on the linebacker, or put your hand right here and go to the linebacker. But either guy has to make a play, and it's almost like an option play for defense. One of these guys is supposed to be free.
And if you misread it, you're going to get the result of what we saw.
It's not even a read. It's like if you don't do the right technique. The technique
to disrupt.
The technique is the only thing that stops them from making a play.
So those were some notable plays, at least from the offensive standpoint. Now let's flip the script. Let's go to defense, because there were a number of other elements in play. First of all, the Eagles had 465 total yards of offense. They were 8 of 15 on third down, and they converted what I would consider non-manageable third downs. And the biggest play of all, Howard, was a 3rd and 20. Okay, it's a 2-point game. It's 20-18. You make the stop. Who knows what happens? Jalen Hurts, we've seen him do this time and time again. He extends the play with his legs. He rolls out to the right. He finds an opening for A.J. Brown, a 32-yard gain, and they ultimately go on to score a touchdown. But when you have the opposition in a 3rd and 20, that is clearly, whether or not you execute or not, it's a favorable situation, though, for the defense under those circumstances.
Well, it was, and I think that the way the Wink had it drawn up is that they allowed the guy to get to his spot, but they wanted the player to run underneath to undercut the play and catch the ball. The guy that was the underneath player never got deep enough, which is unbelievable. He didn't get deep enough, but he never got deep enough. So that could have been a pick six almost if he catches the ball, or at least don't even catch the ball, just knock it down.
Sure.
Then turnover, and they got to punt the ball. So those things kind of matter. I think plays that you have to understand. Hurts squats over 600 pounds. He's not going to just go down if you go in and try to throw at him. You have to actually hit him and knock him down. So guys coming on blitzes on the edge, they're getting there and they're diving at him, trying to kind of grab him and hold him. Now that's not the same person that you're looking at. You're not looking at the normal quarterback that you can hit and just kind of run over and knock down. So that's problem number one. Problem number two, most of the blitzes were coming at him trying to force him to a side. He would start that way and roll back the opposite way and just buy time. And then guys were chasing, but Hurts is a fast quarterback.
Yep.
And even though he's not running north and south but east and west, he's changing the whole design of the back end of the defense by going across the field, and he's running guys open by the way he's coming. I think the one time the ball was snapped over his head, he picks the ball up and sprints around, and as he's sprinting deeper and starts forward, the entire defense starts to come up to hit him and leaves a guy wide open for a play that you wouldn't think they could do. And I heard people go like, you got to stay with that guy. I'm like, yo, dude, that's like 5-6 seconds.
A lot happens in between that.
Yeah. And your choices are, I stay with him, who's at 8 yards, or and let Hurts run by me, or do I try to come up and stop Hurts from running by me? So they put you in a pickle when things like that are happening. I think also the back, running up into the crowd and all the linemen having their blocks and him standing there. And next thing you know, he turns direction and goes the opposite way. You have no idea where he is because you can't see him. And all of a sudden, he's like, wait a minute, is he still running? And then you're in chase mode. So those kind of things kind of hurt them. But for the most part, they did a good job. But they had 2 or 3 plays that really burned them in the end, and that was the difference in the game.
You were bringing up, it's another 3rd down, 3rd and 3 from the Giants 17. This is late first quarter. Hurts on a bad snap salvages it, and then he hits Greg Calcaterra, of all players, who was a tight end that did not have one catch or one target up to that point. So that's a 9-yard gain. And then 2 plays later, he was ruled down. But what you were talking about, DeAndre Swift, he starts right, then he cuts back left. They did rule that his knee was down, but he had a similar play, Howard, later in the game where the knee didn't go down.
No, it didn't go down. But
Correct.
Again, you just they're not getting to him. On the play he goes down, someone hit him. On the other play, he just ran up in there and tried to push through the pile. He couldn't get through the pile. He's like, okay, let me see if I can go out the other side. And as he comes out the other side, everybody's over there like, oh, here he comes. Come on, I got you blocked. Come follow me.
Yeah.
So it's weird, man, but that's the way the game goes.
Well, and by the way, Howard, you know who was blocking for him when he cut back? Jalen Hurts.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's not like, he's not a bad blocker. Believe
No.
me, he's a big dude.
No, well, but what I'm saying is that's the benefit of having a quarterback that's built like that.
Yeah,
I was backing what you were saying earlier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, meaning you shouldn't say, oh, the quarterback's there, you should run him over. No, Jalen Hurts is cut from a very different cloth when it comes to blocking.
Cut it would be the way that he looks.
Yes, 100%. The other element of this game that involved DeAndre Swift, and here it's now a 30-25 game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're up against the clock, but you also want to make sure that you keep it one possession, and maybe even better yet, keep the Eagles off the board to then get a touchdown that could win it for you. So the Eagles, they take over. There's 5:22 to go in the fourth, and you know the Eagles are going to run the ball because their goal right now is they want to run clock. DeAndre Swift gets the ball, Howard, 5 straight plays. And he runs for 48 yards. 5, 17, 5, 9, and 12. And the Giants are forced to utilize timeouts, which limited them on the final possession. But here's an example, Howard, and we've seen this with a lot of teams. San Francisco, Baltimore, for example. They know that they want to run. You know that they want to run. And you still can't do much of anything about it. And that was a backbreaker.
Well, 4-minute offense has been a skill in the NFL that people don't really talk about a lot. You always think about 2-minute offense because you're just passing the ball and you're getting it down the field. But 4-minute offense and being able to close a team out by running the ball, the offensive line gets super excited about this because they know if they can get their block and everybody gets their block and stays on for a minute, the back's going to get 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, and the chains keep moving. And every time the chains keep moving, you look at the defense, and they're like, okay, we just got to get to him next. We'll get to him the next play.
They're huffing and puffing.
And then you do it again. Okay, now they're trying to rotate guys, and we got to get some fresh guys, and we got to get guys to that guy. And it just doesn't work that way. And the problem also with the Eagles is when Jalen hands the ball off, you're wondering, is he going to keep it?
Sure.
So that gives you a half-second pause. The linebackers take a second to pay attention to Jalen. The D linemen are like, okay, I know the ball is going to the right, but did he just move back to the left? And you're peeking, and before you know it, the guy's past you, and that's hard to do. You got when you have to account for the other person, it's a little tougher to do. So, and if they're not stopping, quote unquote, totally stopping and the run. And they were doing a pretty good job of it, and Jalen had a couple runs. They weren't pass plays. They were actual design runs. And when he had those couple of runs, it changed the way that the Giants, kind of defended the run after that. They're like, okay, we got to keep an eye on Jalen. We don't want him to beat us with his legs.
Because that little hesitation can all of a sudden lead to a 5 or 6 yard gain, or even worse, if you go in the opposite direction, 100%. What also didn't help the defense's cause is 2 special teams returns by the Eagles early in the game. You had, and he's one of their best return guys, but one of the best in the league, you can argue, based on his average per return, and that is Britton Covey. They get a huge 54-yard return after the Giants punt off of their first possession. So, Howard, they start on the Giants' 13. And the worst thing you could do is give the Eagles that favorable field position. And no surprise, 2 plays later, between Swift and Hurts, they punch it in. Then you had a short punt by Jamie Gillen off the bounce. Covey comes in out of nowhere. He fields it, and it wasn't a huge gain, but hold on a minute. Even a 12-yard gain there puts them at their own 48.
But it was
They're
a short
at midfield.
punt. But it was a short punt.
But it was that combined with the return that was a double-edged sword.
Well, the first one, the guys got down there and a couple guys hit him. But you can't throw at a returner that has a good balance and stuff because he's going to keep moving.
Because he reverse field.
Yeah, no, you have to get him to the ground. You have to rally to him, and you have to stay in your lanes. And once there's a gap in the coverage, that leads to a long run. And that's what you saw with the 53-yarder. And the second one, when you hit a knuckler straight down, it's kind of like throwing a pass to a guy. When he catches it, it's like an interception almost, and he's coming back right at you. So you everybody's got to be able to get down the field again to make the play. So, Gillum did his job on the first one, and the coverage let him down. And the second one, he probably was tired from chasing the guy on the first one. So, those kind of plays happen, unfortunately. And special teams was just like everybody else. They didn't have a bad game, but they had 2 bad plays.
And that is a cumulative effect over the course of the game. It was a Tim Wakefield knuckleball I would throw in there. And Brian Dable, when he spoke to the media earlier today, had mentioned that Jamie Gillen aggravated a knee injury trying to tackle on the second one. So that means his status is now a bit up in the air with this quick turnaround for Sunday. The other thing that I wanted to bring up was some of the officiating. And everybody's going to obviously emphasize that. So the first interesting turning point was right at the end of the first half. And we talked about how the Giants couldn't capitalize because Hassan Reddick makes that big stop. Okay, so the Eagles get the ball back. They go 11 plays, 72 yards, 247. But the most notable play is it is, at this point, 2nd and goal at the Giants' 15. Jalen Hurts scrambles. And surprisingly, he does not decide to run out of play. He fakes running out of play, stays in bounds, goes down. He's tackled by Okereke. The ball comes loose. Okereke recovers it. Hurts is now trying to take off and run because they want to spike it to see if they have any chance to kick a field goal. Meanwhile, Okereke has the ball, and the official throws the flag, delay of game. So you have an issue where the Eagles would have probably run out of clock.
Yep.
And now the delay of game stops the clock and gives them an opportunity to bring out the field goal unit. So that was a critical call very late in the first half.
That was. So I want you to also remember what you just said. The official wanted the ball right then and there.
Yeah.
Right? Okereke is getting the ball. First off, this goes back to something I beat on you all the time. That's that whole punching the ball out thing. You say it's like I told you, it's luck. It doesn't always happen. The ball comes out kind of late. He thinks he's done it. Oh, I've done it. I've caused a turnover. He jumps on it, and it's a penalty. The thing that you have to remember, because this is going to come up later in the game, the thing you have to remember that the official called for the ball so he could reset the ball.
And that's his job.
Right? That's his job.
Correct.
Later in the game, Waller has a catch.
Sure.
We're driving down.
Gets hit on the back.
Gets hit on the back. He's on the ground. He's reaching up to the official like a child to hand him the ball, and the official's waiting for him to stand. So, don't know what that's all about. I'm like, interesting. Nope.
One has patience and the other one doesn't, apparently.
And
yes.
then the other really weird officiating, besides all the pass interference, there's another game that the Giants play and that there's no pass interference, which I can't understand because that happens in every game. That's one thing. And the second thing is, like, the entire game, Schmitz, they hit him on the arm. He looks back at the quarterback. He looks up. They snap the ball. He does it in a critical moment, and the official says, you're bobbing your head. I'm like, so if they ran 50 plays or 40 plays, he's done it all 40 plays, this one play is different than the others? He didn't do it any different?
Sure. No, I'm completely with you. It was a very rare call. It reminded me of, and I brought this up on the Giants Hangout, there was a call in the Steelers-Patriots game a few weeks ago, Howard, Thursday Night Football. Steelers long snapper, Christian Kunitz, had done something identical to John Michael Schmitz. And during the course of the broadcast, they thought the official called the false start because of the head bob. After the game, the official says it wasn't the movement of the head. It was the fact that the long snapper slid his hand and moved the ball while moving his head. Now, I wanted to get clarification. I don't think anyone spoke to an official after the game. I wanted to know, did they call the false start because of the head movement or something they noticed in the movement of the ball with John Michael Schmitz? Because that's a big difference, Howard. And I'm not excusing the ref, but we don't have clarification. We're thinking it's the head movement. For all we know, it wasn't the head movement. Why they called that? I don't know.
All I can say is that Philadelphia wasn't argued the ball moved.
Well, they got the call anyway, so
I know,
they need to argue.
But the point is,
I mean,
they weren't going like, the ball moved.
No, there wasn't. But you know what? The Patriots didn't do that also with the Steelers long snapper either, I would say.
I just think that's, I don't want to beat on officials. Let's move on.
Well, we're having a conversation. I don't think we're beating up anybody. It just goes to show you there are these small nuances even within a call. The other one you were talking about was Bradley Roby defending Wan'Dale Robinson on that final drive.
When he ran him out of bounds and pushed him.
A lot of hand fighting there.
Not hand fighting. He pushed him out of bounds.
Well, there was also hand fighting.
Okay. All right.
So, I mean, they were clearly going back and forth with one another.
If you look back at the ball, you're hand fighting. I think if you and I are doing this and we're looking back at the ball for hand fighting, if I'm grabbing you and I'm not looking back, I'm holding you.
Well, no, he did, and he did not look back at the football.
That's a penalty.
I'm not disputing that, but clearly it wasn't called. And then Tyrod Taylor was arguing there was a lot of activity in the end zone on the last play on that. It wasn't really a Hail Mary because they obviously were within striking distance of the end zone at that
Hail
point.
Marys are different. And I tell people this all the time. Hail Marys are thrown into a crowd of people.
Yep.
And everybody's jumping and trying to either knock the ball down or catch the ball.
Sure.
This pass is thrown into the end zone and someone knocks your receiver out of the end zone, like hits him, like knocks him down. That's a penalty. It's just not, I know you can push the receiver a little bit and nudge him a little bit more once the quarterback breaks the pocket, but you can't openly knock a guy down. It's just a penalty. So because I know a lot of the officials, so I don't want to beat them, but
listen, it's the human nature of the game. I bring it up all the time. I understand some fans are not going to accept that, and they want to see these calls because they come at key moments. There's no doubt about it, but the Eagles did have 9 penalties. The Giants only had 3, so there was a noticeable difference from that standpoint. And after the John Michael Schmitz penalty, Dory got the pick 6. So they still were able to get the ball into the end zone. It just happened a little bit later than they had hoped. That's
all right.
We'll go with that. Well, I mean, I do think, listen, I don't know where you stand on this, Howard. Something tells you may not align with where I am, and that's fine. You're entitled to that. But I would argue that teams still have the ability to make up for bad or questionable calls, especially if we're talking about a call that happens with a lot of time to go in the game. If you want to tell me the last play of the game, okay, you don't have leeway and flexibility. But if we're talking about a controversial call in the second quarter, we've got 2.5 more quarters to go for you to change the trajectory of the game.
True, and it's also the thing that you say most of the time, and most guys say is like, the momentum of the game, the momentum of the game, the momentum of the game. A bad call early can really put down the sideline. It could put down the coaching staff, and you're we don't care. If we don't care, why are we saying we don't care? Like, you got to keep driving, keep grinding, keep digging, keep trying to figure it out, and it's hard to do when you blatantly, like there was a play where Swift runs around the outside, you have Thibodeau coming down, crashing inside, and then you have Xavier McKinney being the guy outside that's setting the edge. He's turning around, and his numbers are 2. They're pulling his jersey that much, and they just run by him, and he looks at the official. The official's like, I'm watching Daboll talk to the officials on the sideline. He's like, "Are you kidding me?" And the guy goes, "Kidding me about what?" It's like, so you're like, he's not arguing calls. He's like, these are like, you can't see that kind of thing. He's like, the guy's like looking at him like, "Coach, I don't know what you're talking about." And the best part is some of these plays, especially the play when Swift's knee was down, and Daboll just walks over to him and goes like, "You don't think he was down?" He goes, "I didn't see it." They're all watching the screen. His knee goes down. They're all like, they look at each other.
Meaning they're watching the replay.
They're watching.
But in fairness, Howard, at full speed, that could be difficult to tell whether or not
he was down.
No, he was down. Well, of course.
And
the replay proved that.
Not a fan moment. I'm like, okay, he's down. Can you see his knee hit and bounce up, and he gets started? It gives him the velocity to get up and start moving.
Well, listen, I know from the Giants' perspective, they're irritated when that's happening in live time, but the refs remember, and this is something that the league has been emphasizing, they would rather let plays like that play out, Howard, because replay can always correct it. You understand? If you call it dead at that moment.
Except for when Okereke causes the fumble, and now he's holding the ball.
Well, but that's a different play, I would argue. The Okereke play. That's different than Swift going down on a knee, though.
If the ball is punched out and he has it, if Okereke has the ball and he punched it out, as you say, it's supposed to be like this great skill these guys have, shouldn't the official say, like, we got to see if it's a turnover?
I would assume in that moment, based on how the official handled it, that they believed Jalen Hurts was down. And watching that, I did not think that Hurts lost the ball before he went down. To me, it looked like Okereke grabbed it out after the fact. Now, whether or not that justifies a delay of game is a whole other thing, Howard. But what I'm saying is, if they don't call a turnover, then the Giants are going to have to challenge that, though, right? I mean, that's the only way you review that.
You can't challenge in the last 2 minutes.
Well, correct. You don't need to. Yeah. No, so that's a fair point. So therefore, that's something that New York would have to come into play. But New York, then, I'm assuming, did not feel as if there was anything to look at.
True.
Under those circumstances.
True.
So, because I think you bring up a valid point. Under 2 minutes, you don't have to take a roll of the dice with the flag. You're in the hands of the league.
You're not allowed.
So the league office has all those screens up.
And you're not allowed to either.
Correct. No, but under those circumstances, though, the league has extra eyes on it. They're watching for everything, right? Last 2 minutes. Under those circumstances.
In theory, yep.
So,
okay.
But, once again, it's the human element of the game. There's a lot of convoluted things. There's no doubt about it. This game brought that absolutely to the forefront. All right. Let's open up the phone lines. Before we do that, a few reminders in terms of the Giants Huddle podcast. You can check that out on Giants.com, as well as your favorite podcast platforms, and you could subscribe as well. Some single tickets are available for the final 2 games. You go to Giants.com/tickets to secure your seat, and the Giants official connected TV streaming app is Giants TV. It brings you original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV, it's free. It's on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. All right, let's open up the phone lines as we move forward here. Jerome is in Charlotte. Jerome, welcome to Tuesday's edition of BBKL. What do you got for us?
Hey, guys, love the show. Now that we've been eliminated from the playoffs, is there a chance that we can see some of the other players that really haven't gotten time and that can be more our future? And if so, who would y'all
players like
to
who?
see?
Players like who?
The rookie D lineman.
Jordan Riley, he played yesterday. Riley was out there.
Riley played a lot yesterday.
Yeah, because Rakeem Nunez-Roches was hurt.
More players. You think
Hawkins?
Some of the receivers.
Hawkins got to play a lot in the game as well. Hyatt played the entire game, didn't get any targets, but he played the entire game.
And Wandell's been playing since returning from the ACL. I mean, who's a young wide receiver that you're dying to see?
They basically have, and just so you know, they have used the entire roster. So they don't. I don't think they have anybody who's if you're healthy, you're playing, and you can tell that by like guys like Evan Neal who probably needs surgery, if you ask me. He can't get healthy enough to even get back to the field. So like it's tough right now. Like they've gone through a season of a lot of injuries, and there have been guys that come in and had to play that weren't playing before. And they got a lot of burn during the season. Like you just said, the D lineman got a lot of burn this game because Noches was out, so he had to play. So there are some other guys that are going to get even more burned because there are guys going out. I think Trey Hawkins is going to be he's going to get a lot of burn this next game. It's going to be him and Flott trying to figure out how they're going to fill the spot of Banks. And I'm not saying Banks is definitely going to be out, but from the way he looked on the sideline, I don't think he's going to be back anytime in these next 2 weeks.
And Dable didn't have any update on injuries because they're still undergoing further testing. To add to what you said, he did say that Evan Neal was trying his hardest to get back and that he probably will need a procedure on his ankle. Dable did tell the media that earlier today. So that was the other thing that was of note. And as far as the question, and Jerome, we'll let you go on that note, appreciate the phone call. When we've heard from Dable about his approach, Howard,
he wants to win.
Correct. So, I mean, that should tell you all you need to know when you start to pose the question, they got mathematically nothing to play for, so we're going to see a different approach. No, they're still going to play the same guys. The snap counts are going to be similar because this coaching staff wants to go out and win football games.
And besides that, think of it this way. If you change guys right now, and put other guys in, like maybe some linemen or whatever, you put guys at risk. And you don't want to put anybody on your team at risk. You don't want a Saquon getting banged up for no reason. You don't want to have Tyrod get hurt. And now it's DeVito and whoever the last quarterback is. And that could be –
Matt Barkley,
it could be anything that could happen. So you got to put your best foot forward the entire time and hope that you can play well. The teams that were playing – the last 2 games, the Rams are playing for a playoff spot. So they're coming with everything they got.
Yep.
You can't, throw sheep to the wolves in that situation. The Eagles at the last game of the season, they'll be playing for probably to win the division. If Dallas loses, maybe not, but if Dallas wins, they're going to be like, okay, we got to win too.
Well, or the number 2 seed.
Yeah.
Remember, the Lions are in the mix too.
they're
So
gonna be
Philly will have something to play for. I'd be stunned, Howard, if they have nothing to play for.
So it's going to be really, it's going to be ugly coming down the end for the Giants. The Giants have a tougher schedule probably left to play.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I wholeheartedly agree with what you just laid out, and I think we've been talking about that even when, mathematically speaking, it didn't look promising. Daboll's, his message has been steady, Howard, the entire season.
I want to win.
Correct. So that's not going to all of a sudden change or shift in a different direction. Now, the other thing that we should address before we reopen up the phone lines is they did make a quarterback change in the second half. Tommy DeVito was benched. Tyrod Taylor came in. Daboll after the game, and he emphasized it again today when he met with the media. He wanted to provide a spark, and Tyrod Taylor came in. They had the short field because of the special teams mishap. Saquon punched it in. He threw a beautiful touchdown pass to Darius Slayton from 70 yards out. By the way, the longest play from scrimmage this season. He played well, Tyrod. And it's nothing new, Howard. I mean, we know who Tyrod is.
Yeah.
This is the guy that he is turned to time and time again since he joined the Giants last year. They know that they have a reliable option who can come in the blink of an eye in a game. He could start a game. This was the whole point of investing in somebody like him.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and it's nothing against the guys, Tyrod, Daniel, Tommy. They haven't scored that many points this year.
It's been consistent.
It's consistent all the way through. Without it being a short field, there's just there's just not a lot of points being scored. So I know he wants to win. He wants to give the best opportunity to win and make sure he puts the right person in the right place at the right time. That's all you can do. But if you think that one of these guys is going to give you a huge advantage over the other guy, that guy's going to play. You know, right? So right now they're like, okay, we needed a spark. Tyrod came in. You had some success. That's the spark that they were looking for. Will they continue with that? Like, let's try it again this week, see what's going on. Tommy, be ready. Like that's basically what's going to be happening. So I don't know if a player, that's especially a quarterback, because they are finicky. I don't know if a quarterback can play the same way knowing that he's on a short leash, or is he just going to go out there and play and just give it all he's got because this is his moment. Because for me, especially guys like Tyrod's like, he's been around for a long time. He's long in the tooth. So is he going to be auditioning for? He probably will be auditioning for another team. If it's Tommy's not auditioning just for another team or just for this team. He's trying to show that he can be a legitimate backup in the league, and people should be paying attention to him so he can get himself a long time either holding a clipboard or getting some burn somewhere.
I think you actually bring up a great point, Howard. I want to expand on that briefly because Tommy now is of the mindset, whether he's going to play scared or not, that's not what I'm insinuating, but if you start him the next game, if we go down this hypothetical road, in the back of his mind, he's human. He could be of the mindset, listen, if we go 1 for 8 on third down, they could very well bench me for the second half again.
Yeah.
That possibility exists. Tyrod, as I mentioned, it's not his first rodeo. He's been a starter. Howard, he's been hurt. He's lost his starting job to rookies. He hasn't gotten his job back because of injury.
Yeah.
He has seen it. He's done it. Tyrod's going to play loose no matter what the circumstances are. And when you take that into consideration, that's why if you gave me the choice, I'd probably lean towards Tyrod then more so based on that added element that you just brought to the table.
Well, I, again, don't know.
No, but I think it's a fair point, though. It's a fair point to look at it that way.
Well, like I said, it's the same for Tyrod. Tyrod could go out there and be 1 for 9 on third down and Coach, come on out. Let's give Tommy another shot.
But it's not going to be, I would say, because he's playing tight or timid.
Oh, no.
I guess is my point.
I got you. I understand. Totally. Yeah.
Whereas Tommy, you can make the argument, I'm not saying this would be him, but in the back of his mind, he's saying, I don't want to lose my starting job here in this game again.
I think Tommy would be more of like Tommy's been the entire time. He's just, if it's not happening, it's not happening. He's trying to make plays the best he can. Again, his ability is his ability. That's what I keep telling people. Don't overshoot it. Don't undercut it. It's just his ability is his ability. He missed a few throws. He got pulled from the game to put another guy in to try to give him a chance to have a couple throws. So there's not a lot you can do.
Let's head back to the phone lines. We got Mike in Virginia here on BBKO. What's happening, Mike? What do you got for us?
Hello.
Hey, how we doing?
How y'all doing today?
Doing very well.
Good. I just wanted to talk real quick about just the usage of players. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad we were able to compete yesterday.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And that's what you really want. I mean, besides the W, you always want the W. But it's starting to get a little frustrating the way that the usage of players is with me. I mean, I get Saquon. Like, we went down there after the fumble. We ran the same 3 plays, right? Got him in the end zone. But why is it like, why are they not trying to get Hyatt the ball? Or the only way Hyatt will get the ball is on something deep, where it's obvious the line won't hold up for that. So why can we not, screens, whip routes, slants, something to get these players the ball in space, again, and then maybe try to take a couple shots. But it's like, all we're running, it seems like the thing yesterday with the touchdown to Slayton. That was a smash concept, right? But again, it's still a long pass. Surprisingly, happily that the line held up. But it's just like, I don't think we're utilizing our players the best way, especially for what we have. And it's a little frustrating. I mean, you got speed, and we can't get none of these guys the ball. What's your take?
I think mostly when you think about getting guys the ball, it's the guys themselves. So when you're saying that you want them to be open on certain routes, the guys run open. If you watch the tight end for Philadelphia, he was open. He was running himself open in routes. He was making good cuts. He created separation. Mm-hmm. You got to have separation and clear separation because, look, if a slant is if it's in the shotgun, you catch the ball, you look up, they got to be in the right position. Philadelphia's defense on the intermediate passes is pretty stout. Their weakness is on deep passes. They're looking at Slay and what you call it on the edges, and they're going like
Bradbury.
We can go after these 2 guys. These guys are easy to get after. We just got to get a chance to get after them. That's corners, that's posts, that's whatever. The safeties are pretty good, so you're going to get deep outside routes if you're going to try to win them over. The person that has to win in the middle, the tight end has to win in the middle. He has to be super consistent. Waller has to be consistent in the middle. You saw Bellinger catching the ball in short intermediate passes and getting a 10-yard catch here, a 19-yard catch somewhere else. So those players are having success because, hey, we're going to kind of shade out to the outside to try to keep these guys from going deep and going by us. The interior routes have to be the routes that are going to win with the tight ends, and that's what every play except for every one was an outside throw.
Mike, the other thing to keep in mind, and we'll let you continue here, is you look at the drive where the Giants scored their first points of the game. It was a 10-play, 41-yard drive. It ended up with a field goal. I would argue they were utilizing short passes on the perimeter, Howard. And you look at even the play-by-play. Wan'Dale Robinson had a 7-yarder. Bellinger for 14. Mm-hmm. These weren't bombs. This was get the guys out in open space. Barkley was involved. Darius Slayton had a 9-yard catch. I would argue, Mike, they were doing a little bit of what you were calling for on that drive, which was probably one of their most productive drives where you had a high volume of plays.
And that would mean that Hyatt has to fight to get himself open as much as possible as well. Yeah.
Well, okay, with Hyatt, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when, I mean, you be creative, right? Run some motions to help him so he's not getting pressed. But, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, do you think it's, my opinion, I mean, we don't really have that dog as a receiver. Is that it? Because what I do see a lot of teams playing as a man. And I play receiver, and that's the thing that you want. You want to play man. Because it's like, oh, okay, you don't respect me, so let me eat this. Let me get open. And it's like we don't have that mentality at our receiver spot. The only one we had, to bring it back was Beckham, and that was the last time we had that dog at receiver.
Yeah, you don't have a Plexico Burris, you don't have an Amani Turner, you don't have
A.J. Brown on the Eagles.
But when you're looking at teams like A.J. Brown is a monster, a linebacker playing wide receiver.
Yep.
Devontae Smith is even though he's like they call him a Slim Reaper for a reason. He's slight, but man, he not afraid to go over the middle. He runs the most pristine routes. Catch BBs in the dark. You have some guys like that, but like the Giants have, I think the closest guy they would have like that on the team right now would probably be Slayton. Slayton's the guy that's a little more physical. Like he doesn't get it all the time, but when he gets it, if you take a shot at him, like you fire him up, he's like angry. He wants to get after it. The other guys are kind of, Shepard, if he could have stayed healthy his entire career, was probably going to be that other guy. But a big alpha, what we call one receiver, Slayton's your guy right now. I mean, Hyatt might grow into that. It might be his personality might grow into that, but it takes a lot to be, that guy. That guy is usually a lot more selfish. That guy's a little bit, people always say he's a prima donna, he's this, he's that. But if you're that guy, you're that guy. And like my buddy Jerry Rice, love him to death, was the number one receiver, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. People are like, he never said anything. I'm like, yeah, okay. you just got to be around him enough to see it. But
you are within the vicinity.
Yeah, they want
it.
Yeah, and they want the ball because in a game that may have 60 offensive plays or 80 offensive plays, if you get 5 opportunities, that's a lot of opportunities, and that's his 5 targets. Right. Yeah, so that's why receivers are the way they are. They expect those 5 targets or 6 targets. And if they're not getting them, if someone else is getting them, they're trying to be out there and block and and pull for them. But if they're not getting targets, they won't be on the team the following year. So they chirp a lot. Squeaky wheels get the oil.
And Mike, appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. Yeah, you think about the alpha wide receivers in the NFL. Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. C.D. Lamb for the Cowboys, I would throw in there. Devontae Adams.
Jamar Chase
For the Bengals.
You got guys that when you see them, you know that's who they are and that's what's going on. Yeah, but it's hard to be that guy, It's hard to be like that personality, like Wilson over at the Jets. Kid's the real deal.
Yeah.
He's the real deal, and he's the real deal when he steps on the field. And the Giants were so close to being able to draft in that area. And Hyatt, I think, is an excellent receiver. I think he's got incredible speed. I think that the one thing he's going to be working on in this coming year is wanting the ball and understanding he needs the ball to be effective. So how am I going to be the guy that's going to get the ball to be more effective? The other thing he's going to do, he's going to put some weight on. He's going to put some weight on so he can actually be active in blocking sometimes.
Sure.
Because it's very hard. Like when I see guys the size of Wendell out there trying to block and throw blocks, and guys are yelling and arguing with him, get your little butt out of here. After the play, it's funny, but it means that he's irritating somebody enough that they're not getting in on the play. So you got to have guys like that. You got to have guys that they're willing to do a lot more stuff and be more effective in other parts of the game.
I'll give you a great example of that. Last night, the Niners were playing the Ravens, and Christian McCaffrey on the broadcast said that he bought golf clubs. You would love this, okay? Golf club sets for everybody on offense, not just the offensive lineman, Howard, okay? So if you were on his team as a tight end, you'd get it too. And his rationale for why he got even the wide receivers was because what do? They get up the field and block. Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, I know who's a tight end. Yeah. So that speaks volumes of what you're talking about.
Know that everybody's contributing, and if you have that kind of cash, hook them up.
That's right. That's the other part of the equation. You need the money and the resources. Sure. Let's head back to the lines. We got Aiden in New Jersey. Aiden, welcome aboard. What do you got for us?
Aiden.
Welcome. Happy holiday.
Same to you.
Happy holidays, brother.
Okay, so I want to talk about the quarterback change yesterday. Honestly, when I was watching the Saints game a week ago or so, I honestly thought they should have done the same thing. But the offensive line wasn't working for Tommy DeVito. He was getting sacked. I mean, it's the same offensive line and everything, but I think you got to make a change sometimes. And what happened yesterday, the second half went a lot differently than it did in the first half, and I think sometimes you got to make a change like that.
Yeah. Well, in fairness to Tommy, think of this. The second half changed because of their version of the butt fumble on the kickoff. That was one.
That was huge. Yep.
Gives them a short field. Tyrod has one really nice scramble. Slayton makes a great diving catch on a slant, but it went through the hands of the defender. Another luck turnover, not lucky.
Yeah.
And then Slayton catches
keeping
a
my
ball.
mouth zipped. Yes, go ahead.
Then Slayton catches a long pass on the outside. Those were the big plays that Tyrod contributed to. Had the benefactor of the butt fumble thing was great, but that was the Saquon Barkley show right after that. Then when you go the other way down the field, the scramble was Tyrod's big play. And the pass of Slayton, the two passes of Slayton were both big plays. But there weren't, tremendous amount of plays. It's just that the short field really kind of sparked everything for him.
Yeah, that context is important, Aiden, what Howard is providing. And the other thing is, if you go back to what we were talking about earlier, you had 2 third and shorts where I had mentioned Taylor was pressured on both of those throws. And that's why they were slightly underthrown to Barkley and Waller. So I would agree with you. You got maybe some explosive plays, as Howard mentioned. They were able to finish in the red zone. So they were able to finish drives, but let's not be misleading to say that Philadelphia still wasn't winning in the trenches and getting pressure on Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah,
that still existed.
Like one guy's airmailing balls and the other guy's throwing them short. So that's like you take
you're
your
impacting
pick.
the quarterback, correct. No matter how you spin it, you're impacting the guy throwing the ball.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Aiden. Appreciate the phone call. Thanks for giving us a ring. And it goes back to, Howard, what you were saying earlier, and I have been preaching those same exact words, especially when we got to the point around the bye week where everybody was holding the conversation of, do you go with DeVito? Do you bring Taylor back? Should he not lose the job due to injury? And whether it's any of the 3 quarterbacks, there's a reason why the Giants are averaging under 20 points a game. Okay?
What is that? Just tell me.
Well, it's because of the other elements surrounding the quarterback.
It's the offensive line.
Well,
they're struggling.
Well, but in fairness, though,
Offensive
Hassan
line.
Reddick got through 2 guys that had nothing to do with the offensive line.
He did twice.
So
yep.
I will include an extension of the O-line.
The blocking was questionable sometimes, and that's not, I'm not beating on the guys or anything.
No, it's just the truth.
They're having a hard time, but they will get better in the future. But for right now, it's been very questionable.
And that's why, I know we're going to field a lot of calls, I'm sure, leading up to whenever Brian Daboll and the staff, if they choose to make the announcement this week about who's going to start against the Rams. But if you're being realistic and you're looking at the items around the quarterback, every quarterback has had their fair share of challenges in terms of completing drives and finishing things. And now they're going up against, okay, Howard, we talked about the Philadelphia defensive front. Do the Rams have the same substance? No, but they got a guy by the name of Aaron Donald. And he can wreck a game no matter where you line him up. So that's something else you've got to take into consideration.
The problem is he's lining up in the interior, and that's the part that we really need to try to focus on and get better, is trying to get those guys in the middle the best opportunity they can get. And that's where he is, going to be, I feel bad for John Michael Schmitz. You're going to play against one of the best, and he's going to be like, okay, here's my chance. So the guards are going to be on the best behavior. They know that this guy is like a jailbreak happening all at once. So everybody's going to be doing all they can to try to corral and see if they can make this guy, a normal person. But he's not normal. He's superhuman. So that's going to be an interesting game watching how he plays.
The other thing that's going to be interesting, you were commending the Eagles for having those alpha wide receivers, right? Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and very different in terms of their physicality, the way they play the game. Well, now you're going to get Cooper Kupp, and you got Puka Nacua, who's having an outstanding rookie campaign. And if Deonte Banks doesn't play, and we don't know his status, and that's going to put more stress on perhaps a younger member of the secondary, like a Trey Hawkins, who could be thrust back into the fire. So it's another reason why it goes back to the conversation we were having earlier with a caller. You want to see these young guys, but if the goal is to field the most competitive team,
to win,
then you have to also take into consideration who you're going up against and who affords you the opportunity to try to slow down that talent.
Yeah, you got to try to win no matter what. And I think that even late in the season like this, this game will be the same as it was against the Eagles. Can we get some more improvement?
Yeah.
Can we get just a little more improvement? And I think that people, when I say that, people are like, oh, well, you want to win the games. Like, yeah, I'd like to win every game, but I'd like to see improvement every week. And I thought there was a huge jump. You can see the mentality, despite who was playing quarterback, the jump in the plays of Saquon going, you know what? I'll take 3 yards. I'll take 2 yards. I don't care. Like, your back is going to be sore. Your hip's going to be sore. I'm coming right after you. Like, you got to figure it out. I'm going to do it. And that made a big difference in the game. Starting out in shorter downs and distances. It made it easier. So if it's 3rd and 4, if you don't get it, it's like 4th and an inch. Okay, we can try something here. So I think that's going to be the biggest difference in the game. If they can continue to do stuff like that, which they're going to have to test the edges of the Rams defense, they're going to figure out, okay, can these guys hold up on the edge, and can we get another body, another hand on Aaron Donald so we can get up to the second level? Because sometimes Aaron Donald is so disruptive that even though you're trying to get to the second level, you're trying to figure out how to slow him down because, okay, he's splitting us. We know he's going to try to split us. The linebacker's right there. Aaron Donald makes the play because I can't stop him. You can't stop him. The linebacker's like just kind of hanging out back there. Like, well, if he gets past Aaron, I'll tackle him. So that's the kind of defense that Aaron Donald kind of plays.
And by the time you figure it out, the game is over already,
Yep,
and
absolutely.
the Rams are all smiles. So that's another thing to put things in perspective. But I want to emphasize your point about the improvement. You go back to the playoff game, Howard, okay? That was the third and final meeting last season between these teams. In that game, the Eagles recorded 5 sacks on Daniel Jones, and they had 8 quarterback hits, okay? And there's more than meets the eye than just those numbers, but I just want to focus on those numbers here for a second. 1 sack Philly recorded in yesterday's game. They were credited with 6 quarterback hits, but 5 and 8 versus 1 and 6.
Yeah.
That's where you start seeing you're now facing 3rd and 4s instead of 3rd and 8s.
Yep.
You're facing 3rd and 5s instead of 3rd and 12s.
Yeah, and they had a lot more first down success. So there was never like a thing like we used to say a long time ago. Like look, no 0 or minus plays on first down.
Yep.
Give me something. Give me 2 yards. Give me 3 yards, so we can have the playbook and the call sheet gets bigger and bigger. The shorter the distance gets on 2nd down and 3rd down.
And once again, you want to look at the numbers in terms of the cumulative effect. The Giants only had 227 total yards in that playoff game. That was it. Now, they got near 300 in this game the other day. And that may not seem enormous. Well over 50 yards is a big difference.
Yep.
Because every single possession, Howard, you're gaining perhaps an additional first down.
Absolutely.
Which is what you were talking about. So from that standpoint, there definitely was improvement, regardless of whether or not the Eagles are a different team. And they are. But Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, okay, all those big boys are still up front.
Yep.
That hasn't changed. What has changed is the linebackers and the secondary because no Darius Slay, no Avonte Maddox, and if you don't get home consistently enough, you could take more chances down the field. So that, I think, was absolutely no noticeable difference. But here's a great litmus test coming up against the Rams we were talking about. And then, Howard, it's also going to be very interesting. I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but can you duplicate it against the Eagles again? Okay, it's one thing to do it on an island for one game, Howard. Can you do it, though, again within a small period of time?
Well, what's going to depend on that is like how they play this game right here. They're going to play against the Rams. The Rams are a good team offensively. Can they kind of get to Stafford? They got to find a way to get 1 or 2 more sacks to be able to put a little more pressure on the quarterback. You got to have somebody like you don't have an alpha DB right now. I mean, I think Jackson will be considered the number 1 guy, and whoever else is playing. I like Flott a lot. He's really good. Also a slight guy, so bigger guys kind of like lean on him a little bit to get him out of the way. I like Hawkins. If Hawkins can figure out, like, don't panic if the guy gets ahead of you. You got enough speed and enough length that you can knock a ball down. You don't have to intercept the ball every time, but make sure you make the tackle. And that was the one thing he started. He kind of started off the season as a starter. And they had Jackson on the inside, and then he missed a couple of tackles. And they're like, "Look, man, hey, we want you to play. We believe you're going to get there, but you got to be a good tackler. Tackler first, and defender of the ball second. Don't let them, keep them in front of you, and when they catch the ball, get them to the ground. You can't have anything else." And that's what he's got to kind of work on, and not get lost looking back at the quarterback, kind of stay in the flow of the play.
Because also one of the things that we mentioned briefly in passing is a lot of missed tackles against Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And that adds up because what could have been a 3-yard gain is now, to your point, a 17-yard gain because DeAndre Swift gets out of your hold or one of the wide receivers bounces out of a tackle. We did see a lot of that.
No greater example than the first punt. Like a lot of guys had their hands on the returner, like had their hands on him, but no one knocked him down. Some guys went in with shoulders to try to knock him off his feet. You got to get guys down. You got to get them to the ground.
Got to wrap them up. Can't try to play bumper cars with
No.
with the shoulder blade. If anything, you're going to wind up hurting yourself in the end. Because clearly I speak from experience from all the tackles that I recorded over the course of my decorated NFL career.
I just feel bad that you used to get beat up by those girls back in the day.
Oh, well. We'll go back to the videotape, and I promise you can watch my schoolyard battles on the hardwood and so forth, which was my forte.
Like
yes.
Charlie Brown.
It was beyond Charlie Brown. I threw Charlie Brown out of the way, okay? I'll tell you that. There was no Scooby-Doo. There was nobody. Or if anything, they were jumping to the corner.
Lucy snatching the ball.
Yes. What an accurate picture. I love how you provide the sound effects, too. This is fantastic. We just need somebody to actually put the images on paper and
I'm
put
sorry,
the cartoon
yes.
together. No,
You're
trust me,
like
I am not offended at all. I can handle myself.
You
like
resemble
a
one of
big
those
boy.
cartoons, though. The big head, the little body. I mean,
Oh,
it's just
wow.
like-
Okay, now you're really taking... All right, see, we were okay. I was having fun. And then all of a sudden, we had to take it to a whole other level. Okay,
You
it's
should
all right.
you should end the show while
Well,
I'm hot.
no. But yeah, okay. It's my mistake, but here's the beauty of it. I take notes. We're going to have another edition of the Giants Hangout coming up when he's got to wake up very early in the morning on New Year's Day. So just you wait, people.
Oh, my God. 8 in the morning
Yes.
is going to be rough, boy.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
do have me on that
Oh,
one.
and trust me, you will be feeling the pain, both verbally and physically speaking. With that being said, that is going to wrap up Tuesday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live, part of the Giants platforms everywhere, and Giants.com/podcast. We'll be up and running again Wednesday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. You can stay locked to Giants.com for all the latest. For Howard Cross, I'm Lance Meadow. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you on Wednesday right here on BBKL. Have a good one.